Despite what Adam Pachiti's sex tapes infer, movie making is actually a tough business. For a director, the process of translating a dream script to a tangible piece of media can sometimes prove near on impossible. But that's what drives some of the most creative minds in the industry to think outside the box and, by hook or crook, make fantasy reality. And the directors of the films on this list are just such visionaries. People who, when faced with scenes that by all logic should never work, just said, "F it, we're doing it anyway." With this in mind, I'm Jules for WhatCulture.com, here with a list of 10 ridiculous ways you won't believe films accomplish their shots. Number 10. D.W. Griffith, Intolerance. Back in the 1910s, or the when Larry King was still a human era as it's better known, there was no CGI for cinemas to fall back on. The director could either get the shot they needed in camera, or just not get it at all. There was a huge reliance on sets, and across cinema hubs like LA you'd find all manner of family homes, jungles, and in D.W. Griffith's case, a piece of ancient Babylon. For his 4-part epic Intolerance, he ordered a 100-foot high construction of the Great Wall of Babylon, and it was truly a sight to behold. Costing the studio nearly $200,000 at the time, it truly lived up to the scope of the director's vision. However, misfortune struck and the film soon ran out of money, so the impressive set was just abandoned for 4 years before it was finally dismantled. Number 9. Stanley Kubrick, 2001: A Space Odyssey. Stanley Kubrick doesn't do things by half measure. I mean, just look at him. That's more determination in one expression than I've put into my entire life. So when Stanley Kubrick set a movie in space, you can only imagine his disappointment when he was reminded that he couldn't actually rearrange every single asteroid personally. Instead, Kubrick had to make do with boring old Earth for the production of 2001: A Space Odyssey. And for a scene that set aboard the spacecraft Discovery 1, Kubrick had to resort to funfair technology to get the shots he wanted. For the scene in which Dave jogs along the circular hub of the ship, Kubrick had the set built into a rotating Ferris wheel at the cost of $750,000. The result is a simple yet stunningly beautiful visual effect. Number 8. Danny Boyle, The Beach. Before Leonardo DiCaprio became a coke-snorting stockbroker for the Wolf of Wall Street and then started fighting bears on the Come Down and the Revenant, he starred in the odd but pretty awesome film The Beach. But things weren't all thongs and flip-flops for the young heartthrob, as the director, one Danny Boyle, decided that the island they were filming on needed a bit of landscaping. And for the record, landscaping in this case was more akin to bulldozing, as foreign fauna were planted and local plants removed and tossed aside. This turned out to be a real feng shui f***up, as the ecosystem of the area took a massive nosedive and ended up looking less like paradise and more like Torquay beachfront. It was so bad, in fact, that there were even rumours of lawsuits against the production team as their actions were deemed illegal. Number 7. Akira Kurosawa, Throne of Blood. Akira Kurosawa is responsible for some of the most unforgettable death scenes in cinema history, like the killing of Kyotsu in Seven Samurai or the geyser blood-spurting end of Hanbei in Sanjuro. Perhaps most unforgettable of all, however, is the death of Washizu in Kurosawa's adaptation of Macbeth, Throne of Blood. Having killed his lord and arranged the murder of his best friend, Washizu finds his newly acquired castle besieged by an avenging army of samurai. Washizu's men grow tired of his rule, turn on him, and decide to offer up his body to the enemy. To do this, though, they have to kill him first. So Washizu's troops take the practical approach and fire a barrage of arrows his way. And with actor Toshiro Mifune clearly on camera apparently dodging these flying kill sticks for some unnervingly long takes, it almost looks real. That would be because it is. Doing away with all the special effects and camera trickery nonsense, Kurosawa had choreographed archers to shoot real waves of arrows at Mifune, which required the actor to hit specific marks and hope to hell that one of the bowmen wasn't having an off day. Number 6. Alexander Sokurov, Russian Ark. The single-take movie has been done before. Alfred Hitchcock, for example, was doing it as far back as 1948. But while Rope actually implemented 10 pseudo-cuts to give its cameramen and actors a little breathing room, Alexander Sokurov apparently didn't get the memo. The Russian director decided for his historical drama Russian Ark that he'd implement a 96-minute tour de force on his cameraman, forcing tight shots through 33 rooms of the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg. The 2,000 or so actors definitely had their work cut out for them, but the real hero of this piece is Tilman Butner, who was the Steadicam operator. I twist my mustache to you, good sir. Number 5. John McTiernan, Die Hard. Hans Gruber is a god amongst movie villains. Calm, intelligent, and brutal in ways which make me even squirm. And not just because he kills a man who is as cocky and as bearded as I am. Now at the end of the glorious Die Hard, Happy Trails Hans is dangling off the side of a building, and McClane forces the suited sociopath to fall by severusing, sorry for that one, his hold on his wife's watch. Now look at that face. That's a really good impression of somebody falling to their death. Well, it turns out it was real, as McTiernan dropped Rickman 70 foot onto a crash mat that was disguised as concrete. Now, Rickman went on to say that he guessed it was probably about 40 foot in reality, but either way, that's still quite a distance to be let go from. Number 4. Ron Howard, Apollo 13. Filming zero-gravity scenes in films is, for lack of better words, an absolute ball ache. You either have to have multiple strings being pulled to give the actors a weightlessness, or you have to rely on extensive green screening. But for Ron Howard and the Apollo 13 cast, neither was a viable option. Instead, he strapped Tom Hanks, Bill Paxton and Kevin Bacon into a Boeing KC-135, also known as a Vomit Comet, for a more realistic recreation of zero-G. By flying high and then plummeting suddenly back to Earth, the Vomit Comet offered a 25-second window in which passengers really are drifting in zero gravity. Howard simply then set up his camera inside the aircraft and put Hanks and company onto float setting. Reports say that this was a truly arduous and stomach-churning affair, but one can't deny that the end results aren't impressive. Number 3. Michael Curtiz, Casablanca. The use of forced perspective in movies is, as well as being surprisingly effective if used correctly, often absolutely hilarious when seen up close. I mean, just look at Ian McKellen stomping around a tiny house like a giant in the Fellowship of the Ring for a quick laugh. Yet, one of the most famous examples of forced perspective can be found in Casablanca, where it used little people to stand in the background to give the feeling that the airport scene was real. In actuality, because of a little old thing called World War II, filming at airports at night was a strict no-go option. So what we got in actuality was an indoor set with some tiny extras in the background to fool us into thinking that the space was much, much larger, which does make the scene very strange once you notice it, but when you think about it, it's very cleverly done. Number 2. Michael Cimino, Heaven's Gate. This one isn't so much a mind-blowing shot. In fact, the image of Chris Christopherson cracking a whip in Michael Cimino's Heaven's Gate is plain and unremarkable. It has no impact on the plot and is nothing but a stylistic flourish that you could essentially take or leave. But it's the lengths to which Cimino went to get this shot that make it extraordinary. That's because this one shot took 24 hours, and that becomes a bit of a problem when this film cost approximately $200,000 per day, and the director is now spending one of those days on a single shot. As you can imagine, the film went over budget, flopped at the box office, bankrupted a studio, ruined Cimino's career, and practically killed the Western. But hey, at least now critics kind of like it, right? And number 1, Christopher Nolan, Interstellar. Christopher Nolan is no stranger to going to extreme lengths for his shots. In fact, it was a toss-up between this entry and the rolling tumbler set he built for Inception. However, the Tesseract set, a 3-dimensional shadow of a 4-dimensional hypercube, is what really takes the black hole biscuit. The idea was simple: build that thing that I just gone, done and said, but in practice it was an insane project. Not only was the set huge, but practical thought had to go into the visual aspect. As the room was being stretched by time, things like books had to have their shapes extruded, all the while without looking like a complete mess. The result is a phenomenal feat of engineering, shooting and directing, which has been rightly lauded as one of the most impressive series of shots ever to be put to film. And that's our list. Got any more ridiculous shots to show us? Well, let us know about them in the comments below. And if you want to come and check out my angles, you can do so on Twitter at RetroJ0. If you enjoyed the video, then like, share and subscribe for more. As always, I've been Jules from WhatCulture.com, and I'll speak to you soon.